Good evening, YouTube. This is King Grimlock, and Friday night on Grimgrams is going to be Import Night, where we're going to celebrate all things non-UK released. And to kick Import Night off, I'm going to give you a Henkei double header. Tonight I'm going to be looking at two toys from the Japanese exclusive Henkei line, their answer to the classics. And part one, we're going to kick off with Henkei Hotrod. He's more commonly known, of course, as Hotshot in the West, from Armada, or in Japan Micron Legend, and he's been redesigned completely for 2009, and let's be fair, that couldn't have come soon enough. The original toy was disappointing at its very best description. I don't own it, but I've had enough people tell me and show me, and I've had my hands on it, and it just lacks anything. And part of what the problem was on the original toy that caused the problem is, in an opposite way, the part of what the problem is on this toy. You see, everything in Armada had a minicon. Jolt, in this instance. And the minicons gave gimmicks for the toy. Things popped open, guns got bigger. They were force ships that could transform, as Mr. McFeely said recently. Unfortunately, in the Henkei mode, Jolt does nothing. You plug him in, and nothing happens. He doesn't even sit that well in. I mean, you probably have to force him. And then, in the Armada mode, the front bumper would pop open. But here he does nothing. He does nothing, which means his inclusion really does seem forced. And I don't have much to say about Jolt, so I'm going to have to say goodbye to him for the moment. But then instantly point out the problem that his inclusion gives. You have this massive gap in the rear spoiler and in the rear glass, and a little nubbin on the back that becomes his minicon port in robot mode. Jolt being left out would have filled that gap, filled that glass, not had that on, and would have made a much more comprehensive vehicle mode. He's not a bad vehicle mode at all. In fact, he's a very nice and tidy little sports car. But that is a glaring mistake. Really, that's a glaring design error. Get Jolt to do something, and it works. Get Jolt to do nothing, and it's stupid. Looking closer at the car itself, the design especially, or sorry, the deco especially, and you have this gorgeous chrome work that you have on all the Henkei toys, on the engine and on the Henkei exclusive exhausts and blasters they double up into. The question is, I have, with all of the chrome that was used in the Henkei line, why didn't we get it on the alloys? Or why didn't we get it on the front grille, where we're left with this horrible matte grey finish that is painted? It's not even moulded, it's painted on, and at areas you can see where the paint's pulled and it's thick. It's horrible. I personally don't like this grey bumper as well that goes into the trim on the side and on the rear bumper. Is also on the motif on the top of the car. You just feel that if this had gone all the way around, you get the feeling it should have gone on over the hubcaps, over the wings and the fairings there, and detail had been filled in, and it had been black and not grey. It could have worked, but as it is, it really just detracts, and it makes the yellow look even more puce and disgusting than it actually is. Another problem is the glass, as pointed out before. It has a hole in it, but here it's this beautiful clear blue. On the front of the toy, it's a beautiful clear blue. It's a lovely blue colour and works very well with the yellow. Unfortunately, on the side, Takara took the decision to paint it, and it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's for that main reason that I will never display this guy in this mode. It's lazy, and it's a Takara decision as well, which is odd. Because they normally make Hasbro toys better, but here you've got to say, with that decision, as well as a few others, they've made it worse. That isn't the only decision Takara made, as I say, the inclusion of the guns. There's also a slightly different sculpt on the robot mode, but that'll become more apparent when I show you that. On the underside, it's very, very clean. It's very tidy. If you didn't know the toy and know that that was his chest plate, it's very good. You don't see hands, you don't see legs, you don't see arms, you can barely see the head. It's very well put together. My biggest complaint, other than Jolt, is the blasters. Because the whole point of a car toy is that it rolls. And there, Hotshot rolls perfectly. Unfortunately, to do so, you have to press these blasters in so darn hard that it's near impossible to ever get them out again, because otherwise they scrape and drag under the wheels. The two raised areas just are literally half a mil underneath. And it just dragged, and dragging the lovely chrome exclusive across the tabletop, if you decide to roll it, or your nephew, niece, son, brother, dog decides to do it, then you're going to have problems. Overall though, for some reason I really like this mode. I suppose I better take a closer look at Jolt, hadn't I? Jolt's a red helicopter. Robot mode! And here we have Henkei Hotrod in his very successful bot mode. I'm a massive fan of this, despite what people say about it. I think it's a lovely, lovely figure. Highly articulated, comes with two big firing weapons, and overall it's just a nice figure. It doesn't let itself down. Yes, the transformation is massively complicated, and he doesn't stick together too well. The back kibble, quote unquote, when arranged correctly or well, doesn't look really too much like kibble. It just looks like good armour, but it is open to interpretation. And the whole chest area just doesn't sit in on itself. It doesn't click. There's no tension there to make it stand into one piece. The head mould, the head sculpt, is actually different in the Henkei version than it is in the Universe one. I don't have the Universe one to compare it, but having seen photos, you can definitely see the differences within it. I believe the Universe one looks a little more happy than this Henkei one, that does look a little on the moody side. I also believe there's some slightly different sculpting on the chest and on the legs. And looking at the legs, they are probably a disappointing area of it in sculpt, because you feel that if they'd put this bonnet and the nice chrome half of the engine on the outside rather than this empty grey underside of the car, you can't help but think that would have actually looked quite nice. The articulation on this guy is superb. I mean, you've got shoulder 360, you've got a pivot at the bicep, also moves at the elbow. Unfortunately doesn't at the wrist, but as he doesn't have any hand weapons per se, it's really, it's not that important. He's also got these big pivots, ratchets and pivots. Oh, go back together, sir. Ratchets and pivots on the hips, a twist and a bend at the knee. And the feet as well are double jointed feet. I say double jointed feet. They've got the extra joint, so you can actually position them in numerous different positions and get a pose out of him. He is difficult to pose. There is no way you're going to repose him too often. He's not a toy to massively play with, unfortunately, which is kind of against what the Armada line was. It was big, it was colourful, it was hugely playable with easy transformable parts, and this sort of forgets that. But it does deliver a very, very nice and very good representation, I believe, of Hotshot. Let's get back to our big disappointment of the mould. Jolt. Little Jolt. Poor little Jolt. He is so much maligned in this. I'm currently watching Cybertron. He's an awesome character in Cybertron. He's a lot of fun. He's just cack in this. Yeah, that's all he does. He just sits up on the minicom port and doesn't really do anything else. Pointless completely. So let's have a look at him in robot mode if I can get this off. Jolt does transform, but really, is it a transformation? I mean, I'm going to show you this purely because it takes a matter of seconds and it's just as quick to do it on screen as off. That's little Jolt, poor little Jolt. Oh, poor little adorable Jolty with his slightly phallic tail. Oh, poor little Jolty who can't actually stand up by himself. Overall, forget this guy. He's not what you're spending the money on. I would highly recommend this guy. I would highly, highly recommend getting the Henkei version as well, because the blasters do add something to it, a lovely bit of chrome work. And the colour scheme, it does leave something to be desired, and the vehicle mode isn't brilliant, but the bot mode is a wonderfully articulated piece of kit. I absolutely adore this. So go on, take a chance. Take a chance on a toy that nobody loves. Time Lord did with Leo Prime.